Hello, welcome back to Animated Literacy. This is part 14 of the overview and research. And in this part, we're going to be talking about the importance of two-word phrases and how to go about introducing and teaching those. It's important to note that we often skip this step of teaching, and that's not a good thing to do. As it's pointed out in this quote from Roberta Golenkoff, an expert in language acquisition. She says, unlike the dramatic moment in the movie E.T., when the alien says phone home, two-word speech often goes unnoticed. So as teachers and as parents and grandparents, we tend to celebrate when a child speaks their first word, but kind of pass over when they speak their first phrase. She tells us that children reach this milestone after they have mastered about 50 words. So animated literacy works in a natural sequence. We first teach single words because once babies have learned to coo and babble and started to manipulate sounds, then they start to produce their first words. And those first words come very slowly. And if you watch children when they're producing their first words, they really work with their mouth and struggle in how to form those words. And so once they've gone through the whole process of forming a single word, then they move on to the next single word. And then they gradually build as their production increases and their speed increases. They gradually build to where they get about to 50 words. And that's when the two-word phrases start to come into play. So in animated literacy, we begin by introducing Polly Panda and Uncle Upton, and then we combine their two sounds and we draw and label a pup. Then we move on to a pop and a mom, and so we're labeling with single words. Then as they start to get better at those words that name the whole picture, we start to bring in words that name the parts of the picture. But we're still working on that one-word level. As children become more and more proficient with single words, then we'll be ready to move on to two-word phrases. And as they're working with their single words, they start to learn that those words are called nouns because we use Brian Cleary's book, A Mink, a Fink, and a Skating Rink. And if that's read over and over again, then the children start to identify those words that we put inside circles as nouns and words that we can draw and words that we can trace around. So in his book, he repeats that word noun over and over and over again. Hill is a noun, mill is a noun. Even Uncle Phil is a noun. Gown is a noun. Crown is a noun. In fact, our whole hometown is a noun. So it's easy for kids to pick up that vocabulary and start to call those nouns. There's a big difference in how we process single words versus how we process phrases. This is from a speech pathologist named Dorothy Dougherty in her book, How to Talk to Your Baby. And she tells us that in all the languages in the world, sentences are built using noun phrases and verb phrases. Researchers believe that rather than memorizing millions of sentences, children master recipes for noun phrases and verb phrases. I taught upper grades before I taught primary grades, and a common complaint of the teachers in the upper grades is that their kids don't write very interesting or varied sentences. They always use the same simple sentence structure over and over and over again. So what we need to recognize is that complex sentences don't come from learning sentences. It comes from learning phrases. And so animated literacy places a lot of emphasis on first two-word phrases and then moving to three-word phrases and gradually longer and longer phrases. And as children are doing that, what they're doing in most cases is they are combining a noun, which is what they've learned to draw and label at the single word level, with either an adjective or a verb. And in this part of animated literacy, we're going to be talking about how to combine adjectives with nouns to form phrases. And then in our next section, in part 15, we'll talk about how to use verbs in a similar manner. So here, we're starting to branch out so that instead of just labeling it as a pup, we have a perky pup or a little pup, or we could move it to a three-word phrase, a perky little pup. Instead of just writing ears, it has gray ears or droopy ears, or we could do droopy gray ears, a wet nose, a drooly mouth, silky fur, long legs, bright eyes, dark whiskers, a wiggly tail. And then we can also start moving into having children use similes to describe. So here we've got claws as prickly as a porcupine, paws as puffy as a pillow. In order to get that interesting vocabulary and start moving children from simple oral language where it's dominated by high frequency words to book language where you have many more rare words, we're going to be reading to children from books that contain lots of adjectives in this section, and then in our next session we'll be reading to children from books that have many, many verbs. And so this is a great book if you're labeling your puppy dog, and it's called Dog from Matthew Van Fleet, and it begins with this kind of language. Fluffy dog, scruffy dog, droopy dog sags, perky little puppy dog, wag, wag, wag. And all of the adjectives that you see on this page come from this simple cardboard book. Fluffy, scruffy, droopy, perky, little, good, bad, neat. And so in the example that I just showed you of the labeling, many of those words came from that book. As we go into our drawing, you'll notice that when I'm drawing, I'm using 5 basic descriptions of the things that we're drawing. So we draw with circles, and the circles don't have to be round. We draw with dots, and dots are simply circles that don't have to be round, that are filled in. With straight lines, with curved lines, and with angle lines, or simply 2 straight lines meeting at a point. And this comes from Mona Brooks' book, Drawing with Children, and I use her process of drawing very heavily. In the drawing that we've done up to this point, I always told children what we were drawing, and we accessed prior knowledge about about the subject of our drawing, and we read books about the subject of the drawing. And if I'm working with second language students who are just picking up English, or I'm working with very young children, that's generally the way I do it. But if I'm working with older children who have developed more vocabulary and more background information, it can be more exciting to not tell them what they're drawing. So a teacher at one of my workshops up in Lethbridge, Canada, told me what she does with the drawing is when she wants her children to draw, she simply sings the melody to this old mystery tune from television. Dum, da, dum, dum, dum. And when their children hear that, they stop what they're doing, pick up their paper and their pens, and say, "Mystery draw," and they all sit down ready to draw. So that's how we're going to do it today. I'm not going to tell you what we're going to draw, but start out with dum, da, dum, 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 and your response is mystery draw. So we will talk about the names of the things as we're drawing them. So put your pen up in the air. On the count of 3, take the cap off your pen. 1, 2, 3. Put your cap on the other end. And show me when you're ready to draw eyes. So now I'm going to come up on my paper. And just like we've done many times, I'm going to make 2 circles for eyes. So make your 2 circles. Show me when you're ready to draw pupils. Decide where you want those eyes looking and add a dot to each eye, and you can leave a little bit of that dot uncolored to kind of reflect light. Show me when you're ready for a nose. Now for this nose, we're going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to make a curve this way, and then make a little curve inside it. And then I'm going to make a curve backwards from that one, and another curve inside it. So there's the nose. Show me when you're ready for big, puffy cheeks. Go. So we're going to go all the way from the top of this nose, all the way around, down, and back up to here. Show me when you're ready for wrinkles. So I'm going to put just some little lines up here, a couple little lines here, some little lines down through here. Show me when you're ready for a bad hair day. And many people will say, never. Well, let's start right here from the top, from the side of our cheek, and we're going to go up with zigzag lines all the way up over the top and down to here. Show me when you're ready to open the mouth. I'm going to just come down here and add a curve this way. Show me when you are ready for arms. Put your arms up like this. We're going to come here and we're going to just zigzag up. Come over here and do the same thing. Zigzag up. Show me when you're ready for a great big thumb. I'm going to come over here, and then I'm going to come down to some little fingers, and then zigzag down here. Then I'm going to do the same thing here. Big thumb, some smaller fingers, and zigzag down here. Show me when you're ready for a body. Zigzag straight down a little bit. Show me when you're ready for a waist. I'm going to draw a line right across here, and then I'm going to make that into a belt by making a rectangle and then a square. Show me when you're ready for shorts. Now, as I'm drawing these, you'll notice if you look in the book, when I drew this subject, we didn't add the shorts and things, but as you're drawing, you can add more details. And the more details you add, the more things you'll have to label, and the more you can work on word recognition. So now let's come up with an angle line here. So another detail we could add is a cuff. So just make a straight line across here. We could also add a detail of a button. So let's give him a round button. We could also add a pocket. So we could do a pocket here, and the more we add, the more opportunities there are to teach vocabulary and word recognition. Show me when you're ready for legs. I'm going to zigzag down here. Show me, and do the same thing on this side. Show me when you're ready for a great big fat toe. I'm going to make a big toe here, and then some little toes coming around. Another big toe here, and another. Now, let's see if you can figure out what we drew a picture of. So let's come over here, make a circle, and put a straight line down for an A. Now we're going to leave a space for a letter, and I'm going to make an E with a straight line. And then I'm going to come up and over that straight line for like a half circle, and then part way up the other side. Show me when you're ready for the letter that goes in the middle. I'm going to make a straight line down, make a curve for a P. What did A blank E spell? A as you're coming down the hill. What does P spell? P for painting. Let's put those two sounds together. Ready? Ape. Ape. Oh, that says ape. So let's put a circle around our ape and tie the string to our ape. Now we need something to describe our ape. So this is a good time to just pause for a moment and take a look at a book that has lots of adjectives in it. This is from Brian Cleary, and this is his book about adjectives. And if you read this book, all of the adjectives that are listed here are included in the book, plus children will learn what to call them. They'll learn the word adjectives. And so it starts out like this: hairy, scary, ordinary. Adjectives are words like hairy, scary, cool, and ordinary. They describe like tan and tall, funny, frisky, smooth, and small. And so it keeps going on with that wonderful rhythmic kind of language as it's introducing all of these adjectives. So some of the adjectives that are listed here that you can use in your drawing are cool, hairy, wrinkled, large, giant, baggy, strong, long, funny, small, smooth, messy. What could we use to describe our ape? Now, when I'm doing the labeling, when I'm labeling the part, we generally take time to talk about the sounds and blend those sounds together. But when we're labeling the adjectives and we're labeling verbs, I tend to just go a bit quicker and let the children copy me. So let's call our ape a cool ape. So let's put a C to start cool, then two O's for Lulu Moose's sound, and then an L on the end. Now, because cool is describing our ape, let's use an arrow to point to the ape. So when we write adjectives, there's an arrow pointing to the noun that they describe. So now let's label another part of our ape. Let's put an A with a circle and a straight line, and an I with a straight line and a dot. What does AI spell? Now, if you haven't already introduced it, you can just go ahead and introduce it right here. A. So that's another way to spell the same sound as A blank E spells. Now let's put an L at the end of that. What does L spell? Oh, laying on lemon leaves. So let's put those two sounds together. Ale. Ale. So what does that say? Ale. You know what? This ape doesn't have one of those. If I added a T, that would say tail. But apes don't have tails. Monkeys have tails. So let's just cross that out. Let's try another one that this ape actually does have. Let's put an A and an I again. And that spells A. Now let's put an R after that. And put those two together. Air. Air. What does our ape have that ends with air? Hair. What does it start with? Humming hot air. So let's put our H with a straight line down and a curve. Let's put hair in a circle because that's a noun and tie the hair to the word. Now, what could we call that hair? He's having a bad hair day, so we could call it bad. We could call it messy. We could call it funny. Which word do you like? And we can let the children choose one. So let's see. This ape, let's say he has funny hair. Let's give him a little top knot here out of his hair. So if I write funny, show me write an F. Kind of looks like a cane with a line through it. There's Uncle Upton's sound. Funny. And this time we're going to use two N's for Nellie Newt's sound. And the Y on the end is going to spell our sound for leaping Eve. So there's funny, and because that describes what are we going to use? We're going to make an arrow pointing from the word funny back to hair. Now we can keep going and putting more and more nouns and more verbs into our drawing. So let's go down here. Let's put an O with a circle and an E after it. What does O-E spell? Here's old Joe Curl rowing his boat home. Ready? Oh! What can you find that ends with O? Oh, here's that great big toe. So let's put, what does toe start with? Toe. Oh, Timmy Tiger's tickling sound. So let's put a T, put our word toe in a circle because that's a noun. And what kind of word could we describe that? When I was drawing it, what did we call that? A big toe. So let's write big with a straight line and a curve for a B, I for itching, G for gliding, and draw an arrow back to the big toe. So now we could keep going right along as the children are interested and we're holding their attention and there's still time on the clock. We can keep writing words here and just fill this whole thing. Now what I was trying to do as I was developing this was to have children have me model it, have me copy it, and then have them be able to go ahead and complete it. So after I've written a few, if my children are at an advanced enough level, I can say to the kids, well, you go on your own and label more parts of the ape and put them in circles. Find more words that you can use to describe those, and we can put the chart up and talk about those words from the book. And so the children, after I've modeled it, they may complete this independently. Well, what I found was children were having a difficult time making that jump from me doing it to them doing it on their own. So in animated literacy, whenever we have a difficult time getting from here to here, we're not going to simplify the task. Instead, we're going to provide scaffolds so that children can move from the simpler task to the more advanced one. So in both the beginning and the advanced workbook, you have pages that look like this, where I've supplied a picture. Then over on this side, I've provided the nouns to label the picture and the parts of the picture. Then from a book, I have supplied adjectives on this one that the children could use to describe those parts of the picture. Now, in what I have the children do is I require them to use the nouns that are listed here because I want to keep repeating those nouns over and over and over again because that's where the children are going to learn to have a vocabulary that helps them decode other words. But the adjectives are just suggested, so they can either use my adjectives or they can use their own. So on this page, the child, we're labeling a mom, so here's the mom, and the child has written that this mom this is a nice mom. She has a blue eye, a red dress, a black button, brown hair, short neck, a pretty smile, and a short leg. Then down at the bottom, I've supplied a sentence in the box, and I've told the children they can copy my sentence if they want, or they can write their own sentence. By the time children have reached this point, they're no longer interested in copying. So I find that my children are all writing their own sentences. And so this child has written, I have a mommy, I like her. Here's one they did labeling a hen. And so this hen has this is a red hen with a big comb, a sharp beak. And now here's a simile. The eye can see like a bat. And I'll talk about in a minute how my kids are coming up with similes. She has a short tail, soft feathers, a folding wing, and a walking feet. And the child writes their own sentence. This is a red hen. I think it has a soft wing. And there's the sentence that they wrote about their hen. Now, one of the great things about this is it does look like a worksheet, but there's many answers. So each child can have their own way of doing that worksheet. So here's another child that did that same page for the hen, only they made their hen a yellow hen with a little comb, an orange beak, a bright eye, big tail, soft feather, warm wing, and smooth feet. And then she writes, I see a hen, it is a girl, and it has a bright eye. So you can see children are now moving away from copying, they're composing their own sentences, they're choosing their own descriptive words. And here's one that was done for Dad. And here we have a quick daddy with a bright shirt, a tickly tummy, warm pants, a little cheek, wet nose, blue tie, and a red shoe. And the child writes, the dad has a wet nose and a blue tie and warm pants. And here they had several rhyming words that they could label. So we have a clock and a sock, a lock and a block. And so the child writes soft bell, small number, curved toe, padlock, square block, little hands, and so forth. And then the child writes, my dog doesn't chew on my stinky sock, no way. Well, that goes back to what I had put into the little phrase there. And I found once the children had those scaffolds and they completed those successfully, then they could move to independently starting to label their own drawings. So here we have a girl and she has a peach face and a purple shirt and orange skirt, and we have an elf on the other side, and he also has a peach face, and they often get these color words from their crayons. He has a yellow shirt and so forth. Then gradually they're adding more and more words. And so here on this side we have a queen, and this queen has brown feet and an arm and hair and a peach. And on the dress, the child writes carnation pink. And that's how a lot of our crayons are labeled, is with carnation. Then gradually you see kids moving on to pages like this, where the labeling gets more and more sophisticated. And as the labeling gets more sophisticated, because sentences come from phrases, the children are writing more and more interesting sentences. And this is where the similes came from. I read this book to the kids, Quick as a Cricket. And Quick as a Cricket reads like this. I'm as small as an ant, I'm as large as a whale. I'm as sad as a basset, I'm as happy as a lark. I'm as nice as a bunny, I'm as mean as a shark. I'm as cold as a toad, I'm as hot as a fox. Well, after reading that, I told the kids we can make up our own similes. If a nose is wet, what can we think of that is also wet? And somebody thinks of a sponge, and we go, oh, a nose as wet as a sponge. A puddle, a nose as wet as a puddle. A raindrop, a nose as wet as a raindrop. Then the kids start to compose their own similes. So here the child drew a picture of a doll, And she labeled parts of the doll. This doll has a mouth, a dress, a heart, a nose, and but when she gets down to the hair, she writes this simile. The hair sways like leaves. Now, I didn't give her that simile. Kids are coming up with this. Then they can start to put their descriptive words into our pattern songs. So here we have the pattern. James, what do you see? Skip-to-Maloo, my darling. I see a brown mouse. That's what I see. And this child has changed it to, I see a purple bee or blue bee. That's what I see. Skip-to-Maloo, my darling. So as the children are progressing from their single words to their phrases, they're going to be combining adjectives with nouns, and then in our next session we'll combine verbs with nouns. And the more work we do on phrase construction, the better and the more complex their sentences will be. So in our next session we'll be talking about verbs, and I hope to see you then. Thank you for listening.